I've known God my whole life. I basically met him in church when I was little. They had like a silent prayer time, and I would always talk to him during that time. So I knew he was there, but I didn't really go any further than that. Our church didn't do like baptisms and stuff, or any time of salvation coming to Jesus. So it was kind of just knowing that God existed. When I was 28, I attended a conference or more of a retreat where that was more the focus, and I walked away processing that for a few days going, wow, this is more than I realized. And so it was after that, I was driving home one night, and it was just a moment where I was just like, I believe you are who you say you are. And I just said to him, I'm all in. My name is LeeAnne Unruh. I was born in Arvada, Colorado, raised there my whole childhood till 12th grade. I was married at 18. I had 3 children by the time I was 28 and raised them predominantly in Western Colorado. In 2005, we moved to Florida, and eventually we ended up divorcing. I remember at that time thinking, I really don't know about being married. I'd been married 24 years, and I thought, Lord, if you want to use me for your life, let's do that. Otherwise, you need to send someone just madly in love with Jesus. And then I met Ron Unruh, and we ended up getting married in 2013. So fast forward to 2020 and COVID. During the lockdown, my niece had texted me, and she had results from a DNA test she had done that disclosed a close family member. After sending in our spit and getting all the results back, we found out that we actually had a brother that we never knew about. My mom and dad are local. They're up in Stewart. They're in an assisted living home. They've been married 66 years. I remember one day sitting with like the Lord and saying, all right, if you want me to disclose this to Dad, you're gonna have to give me a time where we can be face to face. I remember sitting with my dad and saying, Dad, you have a son and you need to tell Mom, and you've got to tell her you're sorry, and we've got to get through this together as a family. And I remember him crying and just being really upset about the whole thing and thinking Mom was going to kick him out of assisted living with her. So it was a pretty emotional moment. Behind the scenes, what also is happening is up in Asheville, my oldest son and his wife were going through a process at their church where they had needed more people to foster children, and that was landing on their heart heavily. Meanwhile, I'm talking to this new brother that I have, and I'm learning all about his life, the pain that he's gone through not having a father in his life. In the midst of all of this, God is just opening my eyes to generational things. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any other likeness of anything that is in heaven or on earth or beneath earth or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord, your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on their children to the 3rd and the 4th generation to those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to the thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. So that scripture for me ended up being just this kind of a cornerstone to what was happening in our family. In the midst of all this also, my brother had called me, and he was really upset one day, and I was asking him what was going on, and he said his youngest daughter had been heavily involved in drugs, and her children had been taken away and put in foster care. They'd been in there 3 years, and then they were pretty much timing out, and none of his family would take them. And so I got on the phone immediately and texted my younger girls in the family, my niece, my daughter, my daughter-in-law, and just said, hey, is anybody open to something like this? Well, if you can remember back to my son and his wife were already on their hearts to adopt, she reached out to me the next day and said, we're very interested. And so I basically handed the baton to her. She got all the information from my brother and ended up getting in touch with Alabama's foster care system, and within 1 year, they permanently got custody of my brother's grandchildren. So as I look back through that scripture again, obviously for me it comes to life quite a bit, because I can see just how these 3rd to 4th generations, and because I don't really know my grandfather and what his real story was there, that's kind of a missing link. God is just so good. And what I've learned really through this whole process is that if I'm a willing vessel, which I was through this whole process, And thankfully, I'd gone through inner healing, so I had cleared out a lot of unforgiveness, bitter root judgments, things that would have inhibited me from moving where God was asking me to move. I probably wouldn't have ended, the story wouldn't have ended the way it did, because I wouldn't have done half of what I would have done. So God knew. And the other part that is so beautiful to me is that throughout the whole thing, it just showed me how God was working in places that I never knew he was working. And so when it was quiet, he was busy doing something else. Patience and trusting the Lord was a big lesson as well.